Welcome to PMA Perspective, your weekly half-hour news program on Pennsylvania business, government, and politics. I'm your host, David Taylor, President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. On this week's program, we'll focus on energy production and environmental regulation. To learn how Ohio is blazing a trail Pennsylvania should follow on maximizing natural gas production, I'll have a newsmaker interview with Rob Brundrett, President of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. But first, we'll talk with Brendan Ferris, Vice President for Energy and Resources Policy at the National Association of Manufacturers, about new regulations coming out of the Biden administration. PMA Perspective starts now.
You're watching PMA Perspective, a statewide source for business, government, and policy news. Reports from the field with PMA's Carl Moreira, newsmaker interviews with David N. Taylor, and from our studios in Harrisburg, PMA Perspective starts now.
And now I want to welcome Brandon Ferris, Vice President of Energy and Resource Policy at the National Association of Manufacturers. Brandon, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So there's news out of Washington about decisions, policies being put forward by the Biden administration affecting both manufacturing and the power plants that energize our economy. I guess we'll start first with it's the PM 2.5 rule. Can you explain to us what that is and why the administration is pushing this?
Yes. So PM 2.5 is an air quality measurement. It's anything that is released into the atmosphere that is a regulated substance. Right now, it is measured at 12. The measure of unit is 12. The administration wants to move it to 8. And how that affects us is that affects attainment districts. Attainment is where an area has enough headroom to be able to manufacture and produce emissions. If an area is not in attainment, that means that you cannot build manufacturing facilities, you cannot make infrastructure investments, and it will severely limit any type of investment in the area.
Well, that seems like a really severe tightening of the standard. Why is this said to be necessary?
So it is a severe tightening, and where it will result is nearly 40% of the entire U.S. population, if it tightens to 8, will live in a non-attainment zone, which means can't build roads, you can't build bridges, you can't build manufacturing facilities in those areas.
Well, that's shocking, and obviously that's going to make life impossible in most places. What is the rationalization on the part of the administration as to why this is necessary?
The administration, so this is actually a reconsideration. This is not part of their regular consideration period. The administration has said that new evidence leads them to believe that they needed to do this right now. We don't believe that the evidence leads them that they need to do this right now.
So that the viewers understand, the particulate matter that is under consideration here is infinitesimally small.
Correct. You cannot see it. You cannot detect it with the human eye.
This is one of the ongoing frustrations for the manufacturing sector and basically the entire, the whole productive sector across the country, all the makers and doers across all industries, which is that, here in the U.S., we are the number one economy, we're the largest economy in the world, and that the U.S. constitutes about 13% of global emissions. So, and that's number two. The number one emitting country is China. They are 30% of total global emissions. Their emissions are rising while ours are falling. So it makes no sense to me how it makes sense that we should be making it harder for businesses to operate here in the U.S. when overseas in China, that they just continue to pollute with impunity. They're bringing online massive amounts of coal-fired power plants that have none of the environmental protections, scrubber, safety items that our power plants would have. I just can't explain this kind of madness. How are they going to get that past Congress?
So this is not going through Congress. This is going through their rulemaking period, which Congress can weigh in with a Congressional Review Act. Congress can attempt to override this, but Congress doesn't have a say on this rulemaking. But it is a competitiveness issue. One of the things that the study that the NAM commissioned found was that U.S. manufacturing is amongst the cleanest in the world, much cleaner than nearly any other country. And yet we continually revise rules and change the targets as we move along. And it's making it harder for manufacturers to make investment in the U.S. All manufacturers crave is certainty, and this destroys regulatory certainty.
And again, I think that the point that you raised there, one, is critical and deserves to be repeated, which is that manufacturers need predictability. We need to have, when targets are set, we need to have a timetable. We need to have the chance to work towards them, to reach them. And the idea that Washington's going to keep moving the goalposts every time we make progress really is just, it's very self-defeating, because as you said, it's going to push production to other countries that have lower standards or no standards at all.
Absolutely. So this is before the rule. We have one NAM member that wanted to build in an area that was not in attainment. It would have cost them $400 million to be able to build their facility and make sure all of the appropriate capture equipment on their air regulations existed. What they ended up doing was moving the project at a cost of another $100 million and a 6-month delay. And those are the type stories we're going to see repeated throughout the country when 40% of the population lives in a non-attainment area.
It's especially troubling, again, to go back to what you were describing, whereby this is a rulemaking by the regulatory body, which is an executive branch bureaucracy. It's not directly accountable to Congress, and that the unelected bureaucrats can impose these rules on the people and the economy without our elected officials being able to directly intervene to stop it when they come up with something stupid.
We've seen that time and time again over the past couple of years of regulatory overreach. Just having a briefing with EPA a few minutes ago, and several of the proposed regulations in other areas are at detect, which means if you can detect it, they're requiring for you to go lower than that. And some of these are just in the background, in the air. So there are no facilities that can comply with their regulations on several of these regulations.
When you're talking about background level, you're talking about things that exist naturally in the environment, and that when any human activity is told that you need to clean to background level, you're essentially rendering any human activity impossible.
Absolutely. Just with the particulate matter regulation, what we're looking at is 852,000 to 973,000 jobs at risk. Economic impact of 162 billion to 197 billion immediately. And that's not including the jobs at risk for the other areas of non-attainment, also including not being able to build infrastructure projects in these areas.
There's also rules that are coming regarding America's power plants. What's all that about?
What we heard from EPA earlier this week is there's a new power plant rule that requires all power plants, all natural gas, all coal facilities within a decade to start putting in carbon capture equipment. Right now, that is a nascent technology. It's a new technology that is promising, but it's going to be required to be put in at a scale that we haven't seen yet, or those plants shut down. Right now, 60% of our energy in the US is coal and natural gas. We cannot afford, in a time of energy security, to shut down 60% of our power plants.
I mean, this is a recurring problem where we have the bureaucrats mandating technologies that do not exist. And if there's a better definition of insanity, I can't think of it. To say that that the federal government is going to require you to deploy a technology that may or may not appear. It's like asking the circus trapeze acrobat to go out to the end of his baton and leap out into the darkness and hope that there's another one, coming back for him to catch. Like that's no way to live. This is just completely unreal.
Absolutely. What we've seen from these carbon capture technologies, they're promising. They are absolutely promising. Should we basically bet our entire country's future on them being able to be deployed at a nationwide scale with 60% of all of our power generation in the next decade? No, we should not.
One of the priorities that our organization has long supported is to have meaningful, independent cost-benefit analysis for regulations. And that this is just a stellar example of that, to say, look, if the government is going to impose these kinds of costs on the economy, on the private sector, show us on the other side of the ledger benefits that are as large or greater than the costs that are being imposed.
That is 100% what we need. Is let's have a goal. Let's reach towards that goal, but let's make sure it's technically achievable. Let's make sure that we can actually reach it, and let's make sure that we know the cost and the benefits of heading into that goal.
And again, it's also just very important for the leaders of our country, who are supposed to be looking out for the national interest and the interests of our people, to benchmark all of these things against the rest of the world and the way that the other major powers are operating. A product that's made in China is three to four times more carbon intensive than the same manufactured good here in the U.S. And in fact, if you wanted, to affect global climate and global emissions level, you should want all manufacturing in the world to come here to the U.S.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, we are amongst the cleanest in the world in manufacturing. And it's not just the regulations that are broken, it's our permitting system itself. The NAM has testified recently on permitting reform, and one of the most stark stories that we've seen is take Canada and Australia, for example. Both of them have roughly the similar environmental protections as we enjoy in the US. In Canada, it takes 2 to 3 years to permit a mine. In the US, it takes 7 to 10 years. Same environmental protections. One is 2 to 3, and the other is 7 to 10. So we are killing jobs ourselves by not being able to build. Senator Capito from the Environment and Public Works Committee says we can't build back better if we can't build.
So Brandon, in the face of these, really terrifying, regulatory actions by the Biden administration, what is NAM prepared to do to lead U.S. manufacturing in response?
NAM is working with EPA, we're working with the White House, we're working with Congress. What we want to do is we always come solution oriented. We don't want to just say no, we want to come with solutions. And what we're trying to do is work with all of these stakeholders, including our members, to make sure that these are technically achievable. Make sure that any of these regulations, it's not about cutting corners. Manufacturers live and work in their environment. They want clean air and clean water. We want to make sure that we get these regulations right, and we will continue to push the White House. We will continue to push the EPA to make sure that these are technically achievable.
Outstanding. Well, Brandon Ferris, Vice President of Energy and Resource Policy at the National Association of Manufacturers, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us. Where can the viewers go to learn more about you, NAM, and how we're responding to these challenges?
Thank you. You can go to nam.org for more information about our policies and our advocacy strategy. Thank you very much for having me today.
Great to be with you, Brandon Ferris. And now I'm very pleased to talk with Rob Brundrett, the president of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Rob, thanks so much for being with us.
Dave, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, we have a special kind of affinity with our neighbors in Ohio, and the fact that Pennsylvania and Ohio and West Virginia are the three energy-producing states in the Marcellus-Utica shale play, and that this has done, amazing things for job creation and manufacturing. And but we get the sense that our friends over across the border in Ohio are working this a little bit smarter than we are. So we wanted to get an update from you.
again, thanks so much for having me, and it's great to speak with you in my new role here. I've been at UGA now for about a year, but previous to that, I was the Ohio Manufacturers Association, so worked with you guys quite closely on a variety of issues. So it's great seeing you guys and talking to you guys again in our new capacity. So right now in Ohio, we're pretty excited about where things are going as far as our energy production and exploration side of things work. We've passed some pretty good legislation here in the past few months to sort of continue the good work that we've done over the past decade in building out Ohio's oil and gas infrastructure for shale drilling. We've always had a strong conventional oil and gas industry, but we really worked hard to make Ohio one of the best places, not just in the Appalachian region, but also in the country to drill for oil and natural gas.
And the legislative innovation that is most promising, most exciting, is the recognition in Ohio state law about natural gas being a green fuel.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We passed that law back in December of last year, among a myriad of different issues, including several other oil and gas issues, including state lands leasing here in Ohio. One of the things we're pretty excited about, and there's several groups that we're working on making natural gas a green energy in Ohio. But Ohio and Ohio's leadership is a place where we are excited and we're bullish on oil and natural gas production. You really can't buy that sort of confidence from your leaders. You certainly can't buy it at the national level, and it's certainly hard to buy it in certain states depending on who your elected leaders are. But in Ohio, what it really does is kind of open that door and say, hey, if you're an oil and gas operator, come to Ohio. We will work with you. We will help you make sure that your business is Ohio's business, and we all become a success together. So we're really, really excited about that. It's not unprecedented, right? Ohio's not the first state. Well, Ohio is the first state to recognize this, but we're not the first place in the world to recognize this. We've seen sort of some similar statements coming out of South Korea, and we've seen similar statements coming out of the EU. I think Ohio is certainly on the tip of this one here in the United States, but I don't think we will be the last. I think other states will recognize that's an important way to move, and I think we'll see that in other states here hopefully soon.
Well, sure, and this is the sort of thing that we'll be glad to explain to our lawmakers as well. I mean, again, Pennsylvania has led the nation in reducing emissions, and it's because of the transition to clean burning natural gas. And I wish that a lot of our decision makers would take yes for an answer. Like, we've made such dramatic improvements, and that the air is cleaner than it's ever been, in the modern era. And we're going to continue, of course, to make progress over time. And again, just congratulations to you guys for that official recognition that clean burning natural gas is, much better for the environment.
I think you hit the nail on the head. If the world would transition away from coal to natural gas, would be the largest green energy project the world had ever seen. Dave, as you pointed out, emissions are dropping drastically. A lot of that is simply because of the switch to the clean burning natural gas. And if you look at Ohio, our emissions have dropped drastically in the last 10 years. If you look at even our methane emissions, they drop. The industry comes under a lot of criticism for methane and for other things. But if you look, we're the only industry that's actually reducing methane emissions in the country. The largest producers of methane when it comes to just straight methane emissions is agriculture and wetlands, and you don't see those dropping, but you certainly see it in our industry. So for us, it's frustrating as we tell the story over and over again, but it's been helpful as we can kind of grab that narrative and tell our story as better than anybody else can, because no one's going to tell our story. We have to tell it ourselves.
Among your membership, undoubtedly, there are companies that operate both in Ohio and Pennsylvania. What do you hear from them about, how easy or difficult is it to operate in each state?
There's lots of the shale operators that operate in Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, and I like to say we're a victim of our own success a little bit at UGA and in the state of Ohio. So one of the things that we have in Ohio that makes Ohio a little bit more of a better place to operate than both West Virginia and Pennsylvania, I apologize, Dave, is that we have sole and exclusive authority for regulating at the state level. So when you're in Pennsylvania or other places, you have to work through multiple levels of local government and the state government as you work on your permits and your regulations. Whereas in Ohio, Ohio's Department of Natural Resources Division of Oil and Gas has sole and exclusive authority over all permitting for oil and gas. So really, Ohio is sort of a one-stop shop. Once you come into the state and you have some acreage and you're ready to drill, you basically just go to one place, and it's ODNR that sets you up with your permits and all the regulations. So Ohio has that extra sort of benefit of operating here versus having to operate in other states where there's other layers of government you have to work with. So Ohio certainly has a benefit there. We also have the vast majority of injection wells in the Appalachian region. So you're a lot closer to your waste disposal areas, which is also somewhat of a benefit. It's just cheaper to haul your water around in Ohio than if you're coming in from Pennsylvania or some other states. So there's some benefits there as well. But the biggest one by far is the sole and exclusive authority and the one-stop shop for permitting that Ohio has that our neighboring states don't have.
That is the difference between being a state and being a commonwealth. So anyway, I'm glad at least that you guys benefit from that. You know, one of the upcoming projects that's likely to involve both of our states is this siting of a hydrogen hub, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that from the other side of the state line.
We're excited about the prospects of it. I think there's certainly a lot of challenges ahead, and who knows how long before this becomes a real reality. But no matter where it is, whether it's Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, we're all going to benefit a lot because we're so closely connected. And not only that, but the Appalachia region's natural gas is the cleanest burning natural gas in the country. So we're already at an advantage compared to other places across the state or across the country. So we're excited about that. We think the ecosystem, and that's the way we view the hydrogen hub, is more of an ecosystem. We think that ecosystem is going to benefit all three states tremendously once the technology and once it comes up to scale. We're really excited about the possibilities and the future of what the hydrogen hub can bring.
These are very, very promising times, and again, fundamentally, in every way that matters, energy is life, and that we all need energy with all of the different manifestations of our civilization, whether it's home heating and cooking, whether it's electricity generation, whether it's powering our industrial furnaces for manufacturing and industry. All of the different things that make our lives clean and safe and comfortable and sanitary and convenient, like all those things ultimately depend on energy production. And so it's worth fighting for, especially when Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, if we were an independent country, that we would be the third largest producer of natural gas in the world. And so this is more than just an economic opportunity for America. That this is a national security issue whereby we can draw closer with our allies, reinforce them, and help to extricate them from compromised energy relationships with hostile powers.
You're absolutely right. If you look at that top 10 list, out of the top 10, there's only 3 countries that you'd consider democratic allies to the United States. That'd be the United States, it'd be Canada, and I think Norway might be the other one in the top 10 of producers. The rest are either unfriendly regimes toward the United States, different types of kingdoms, or dictatorships. And so, like as you point out, energy security is national security. And not only that, but really, oil and natural gas are really the fundamental building blocks of modern life as we know it. And that's one of the things that we try to get across to everyone. So many people want to talk about different types of energy and renewable energy and green energy and intermittent energy and all the different energies. But at the end of the day, every product that you touch or use that your manufacturers make, the vast majority of them are some sort of oil or natural gas based product, the fundamental building blocks of modern life and modern society. And that's one thing I think that gets lost in the conversations regarding emissions or green energy, is that all the products that we use, all the products your manufacturers make, a lot of them have a base of oil and natural gas. And we need to remember that as we continue to to progress further and further on. And we need to remember the importance of what those products play for us.
So, Rob, even though it seems like things are mostly on the right track in Ohio, what are the challenges that remain?
Well, I think we have the same challenges that most oil and gas producing states have. A wide variety. One is perception, right? And so we still have that perception that we're dealing with. Just the industry as a whole. I think the fact that most people don't know much about it. People are scared of things they don't know about. And, I don't think we're getting quite the fair shake in the press that we probably should, and the important things we're doing. So the perception is always a challenge. And so, like you said, telling the truth, having us speak about it, the more we can educate the individuals and the population, the better off we are. And so that's always a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity. As far as just production on the production side, I think, if you look at Ohio, I think we're having the same struggles that everyone across the tri-state region are having when it comes to certain things like workforce. It's harder and harder to find folks to work in the oil and gas industry, much like it is for manufacturing. And really any industry, especially in that part of the state. Eastern Ohio is sparsely populated compared to other portions of the state, so we have less of a population to draw from to begin with. So it's even more of a challenge, and it's also been hit a lot harder with the opioid epidemic than other parts of the state. So it's been a real challenge. The workforce is a challenge. I think for us, statewide, it's not so much of a challenge, but certainly federal regulations are always going to be the biggest challenge. One is, how do you get gas out of Ohio? So interstate pipelines continue to be a challenge. Infrastructure continue to be a challenge. But now more so than ever, methane and methane regulations of the federal government, I think, are going to be the biggest challenge moving forward. The federal government's in the process of finalizing some methane rules that could have just a devastating effect for conventional drillers in Ohio, but it would also impact unconventional drillers quite a lot as well. And so we're watching that very closely. We're engaging with that. But those are probably the largest issues for the industry facing here in the state of Ohio.
Well, Rob, it has been a great pleasure to visit with you. For our viewers, where can they go to learn more about you and the Ohio Oil and Gas Association?
Sure. You can always check us out online at www.uga.org. That's the easiest place, and you can hook up with us there. We also have our annual meeting every March. It's quite a decent size affair. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out, contact us through the website. We can get you hooked up with that. Certainly love to help educate the population, because the vast majority of people, they just turn on their light and they think it's the electricity's built in the house already. It's not quite that way. And we love showing people the way of how it comes from coming out of the ground all the way to coming into your house. So any kind of information that people want, we're more than happy to share. So please reach out to us.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Rob Brundrett, the president of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's program. PMA Perspective returns next week. And until then, stay current on what's happening in your state government by visiting pamanufacturers.org. From everyone here at PMA, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.